Hello, welcome to Mary's Economics. So, as I record this, we are in the middle of a heat wave, or as I like to call it, summer. You know, the mass media and the authorities like to use language which makes us think that a difficult situation is temporary and it will pass. So I'm thinking of phrases like the cost of living crisis and heat wave. Actually, this is just how things are, guys. So in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about climate crisis and how it is a crisis of social justice. So the thing about climate change, and I'm not going to get into the science argument. It's been pretty well established by the world's top scientists that although climate does change naturally by itself as part of natural cycles, humans and our behaviours have massively accelerated climate change and global warming. And that is through the use of fossil fuels, the creation of greenhouse gases, and mass deforestation. Now, I found out something myself recently that I hadn't heard before. Big shout out to the Fossil Heads, who are a pair of hilarious performers that do the rounds at some festivals that I go to and other performances. They sing the most fantastic, comedic, but very dark songs about the climate crisis that we are in. And through watching a performance of theirs, I myself learned that BP had kind of popularized the idea of the carbon footprint as something that individual people like you and me should be concerned with. Let's all measure our own carbon footprint. Let's all see how damaging we are being on the planet as individuals living our separate, selfish lives. And actually, you can look into this yourselves online. What BP was doing there was following a very specific marketing strategy to take the focus away from them. Climate crisis is created by the actions of multinational corporations and the governments who will not put measures in place to rein in their actions. It is not created by us. I'm not saying we shouldn't be mindful. We absolutely should be mindful. But my focus has switched over the years, where I used to hike to the supermarket, carry my stuff back in a backpack to avoid driving a very short distance because I didn't want to contribute to climate change. I still do that, but now I recognise that climate change isn't because of actions like that. Now I do it because I'm more conscious of local air pollution and the number of neighbours I have who are asthmatic. I don't want to be contributing to their use of inhalers and things like that. So I'm not saying that we should be irresponsible, not think about our neighbours locally and globally. I'm just saying the finger of blame needs to be pointed where it belongs. And in terms of individual behaviours, it is those people who can afford to fly long haul frequently, sometimes, to have lifestyles which require a lot of resources being used up and a lot of greenhouse gases being generated to produce the things that they want to consume. And when we are looking at the very poorest people, not only in our society, but around the world, we see that they are the least responsible for these problems. And they are also suffering the most due to climate change. So when you are living in poverty in the UK and you don't have any choice about where you live, you're probably going to live somewhere that doesn't have a very good quality natural environment. And if you haven't noticed it before now, I urge you to just go and stand under a tree and see what a difference that makes to how you feel in the heat of a hot summer day, or as the media likes to call it, a heat wave. Just see how that cooling effect makes such a difference to you. And, that's not the only thing that trees do that benefit you, but I'm not doing a whole thing about the environment and poverty. I might do that at some point. I'm just talking about climate change and currently heating, really, and cooling. So if you are living in poverty, you're less likely to be able to afford to plug in the fans in the winter the fans in the summer, the heaters in the winter, you are less likely to have a well insulated home, which would protect you from both extremes of hot and cold. You are less likely to have those trees around your home, which would provide some natural shading and keep the climate around you cooler and more manageable. If you have a tree outside your window, it is lowering your blood pressure and your heart rate, and that is doing wonders to keep your health manageable. And again, if you're living in poverty and you don't have trees outside your window, then you won't be benefiting in those ways. So that's probably a little spoiler for another video I'll do at a later date. Anyway, back to this heat wave. If you are on a low income, you are not going to be able to afford the more energy efficient appliances. And so your bills are going to be higher. I've already done a video on the poverty premium explaining how the additional money that poor people pay for the fuel that they consume compared to people on higher incomes who can manage with less fuel. That money goes to make companies like BP richer and richer. And this is where we really see the injustice. So somebody suffering in a poorly insulated home, which is having the sun beat down on it because it isn't shaded by a protective natural environment, who isn't able to afford devices and appliances to keep themselves cool, is suffering. And while they're suffering, the money that they are paying to try and manage to keep their fridge running, things like that, is going to fund the people who are responsible for this crisis. It's a shocking injustice and just something that I really wanted to make a video about today. Thank you for watching. Tax wealth, not work.